Herzlich willkommen bei der Kanzlei Rieger und Partner. Ich bin Cornelius Rieger. Heute sprechen wir über den Pfändungsfreibetrag RLE, Real Life Expenses in Irland. Mit dabei der Mark, unser PIP. Hallo.
Hello, Cornelius. Thank you for allowing me to speak a little bit about RLEs and how all of these things work. If you like, I can try and explain it as simply as possible. Reasonable living expenses were brought in as part of the personal insolvency legislation. They are the baseline for what we do when we do our assessments. So the word reasonable living expenses is that they're reasonable. They're not a normal standard of living, they're not a luxury standard of living, and I believe they're 30 or 40% below what somebody would have for a normal living standard. But they are what they are. The ISI, who are the Insolvency Service of Ireland, they're our governing body, they must review them every year. For the first, I believe, 7 or 8 years from when it started in 2012, 2013, there was no review. Some of the costs of living increases, they've increased them, but I'm not sure if they've actually followed it, but they are what they are. When we're doing an assessment of somebody, which is basically just to calculate what dividend is available to creditors, we take their net after-tax income. And the reasonable living expenses are split into 4 or 5 headings. The first one is, I call it the cost of living or set costs. This is what your housing, your utility, your cleaning bills, your food bills, your transport bills, medical bills, everything that you would think that you would have to spend on a day-to-day basis. The next thing you add is what your rent is per a tenancy agreement, or what your mortgage repayment is, or what your split of that if you're sharing it with somebody else. The next thing after that is car and home insurance, which is if you've got a car and home. That was only new. That wasn't in the original legislation. That was changed and added in. The next thing is what's called special circumstances. Special circumstances is exceptional. It is not mandatory. And there must be a very good reason for why you would apply them. So, for example, if in the set costs, you've got a standard medical, you go to the doctor once a year, you get a prescription every year, but you're in your 60s and you're very sick. And you go and say, well, my medical bill every month is this, the allowance is that. We will put that under special circumstances, and I believe a creditor will agree to that. Next thing would be, because of those medical expenses, you must have private medical insurance. And you have a letter from your doctor explaining why. Absolutely, that's very simple. Of course you're going to get it. If you happen to have a family, but you live away from them, you're separated or you're divorced, but it's mandatory that you must apply for child maintenance, and you prove that, or it's a court order, then that's a special circumstance. So they're the idea of what living allowances are. You take one from the other, that determines whether there's a dividend or whether there's not. That applies under the personal insolvency legislation, which is for a DRN, a DSA or a PIA, but also in bankruptcy. But the banks, when we do informal in structures, interesting, now use that as their baseline, and they agree to add 30 or 40% when it suits them. So that would be a basic understanding of what a RLE is, which is a reasonable living expense.
The RLE in Ireland, they are quite different to the RLEs in Germany. So in Germany, for a single, you get 1,450 euro free per month, but you need to pay from it the rent and all other things. Okay. Yeah, utilities and all these things. Okay. So it is quite heavy. How it goes in Ireland?
It's really a simple mathematical calculation, but if I was to compare it, it's the equivalent of a single person, single gentleman, who doesn't have a car, probably being allowed, you can spend 200 to 250 euros a week for everything. This is excluding your rent. And I think if you set down, and it's detailed, so there's a schedule that says this is what your allowance is for household goods, this is what it is for cleaning products, this is what it is for utilities. You can do this. It's not complicated. But I would always say to somebody, do it yourself and see what it means and how hard it is to live on it, because it is quite difficult. And my experience from dealing with my own clients, the hardest part, obviously, than dealing with their situation is living with them when things change. So there's no allowance if your car breaks down. So if your car breaks down and you need a replacement, that's not in the RLEs. So either you no longer have a car or you have somebody who's going to help you. brother or sister or whatever, because you won't get an RLE for a car loan. Nor will you get a car loan in an arrangement. So the RLEs are tough. I would say they're tough. And the cost of living in Ireland at the moment, it's quite expensive. Things are quite expensive, but I think that's the world over.
That's the world. That's
I think it's
in
the
whole
world
Europe.
over.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it
the
is.
whole Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I see Ireland, it's a progressive RLE. It's also different in Germany. So you have the standard for a single with the 1,450 euro. You need to pay the rent from it. And in Ireland, the rent is coming up.
Yes.
On top. Yeah? That means we have the standard, what you have just to spend, to give out, what you need for life, for socializing, all those things. And then on top is coming the rent.
Yes.
So that means I have, what a single get?
So, approximate numbers, right?
Yes.
I could go to my phone and work this out, but let's just do approximate numbers, right? So, let's say it's around 1,100 euros. It's between 11 and 1,200 euros. That's your living expenses or your living allowance, right? Then you add your rent to that. So your rent, it should be reasonably, 700 euros, 900 euros, 1,000 euros. That's kind of what a rent is in Ireland. So add that to the 1,100 or 1,200 euros. Special circumstances depending on that person's situation. That means you've got 1,200 euros plus, let's say, 800 euros. That's 2,000 euros a month. If you're earning 2,000 euros net in Ireland, then there is no surplus there. But that's what you're expected to live on during the term of your arrangement.
So it means, just for give us some sample. Let's go.
Okay.
Show us some
you
sample.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, please do it.
I'll do it the best I can, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'll do it the best I can,
yeah,
okay?
You will get it.
Okay, perfect, okay, I'll do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, I'm just going to give a sample of reasonable living expenses. I'm using my phone because there's many different allowances, many different situations, but I'll do the headings first. Yep. So the first heading is, I'll just do RLEs here. The first heading is set costs. The next heading is housing. The next heading is childcare. The next one is motor vehicle, home, insurance. And the last one is the exceptional one, which is special circumstances. So I'm half writing this one. So these are the allowances. These are what you're allowed to live on before we compare it to your income. So I'm doing it in reverse. So take a typical client.
Single client with a car.
Okay, single client with a car. This is the schedule. So there's single client with a car. So euros, of course, right? 1, 3, 8, 4. This is household expenses, utilities, doing his shopping, food, cleaning, all of that sort of stuff, okay? It includes transport. So this is petrol, motor tax, all these sort of things, okay?
This is that from who he is living.
Yeah. This is what he can afford. The housing is either rent or a mortgage. So let's take a typical rent in one of the cases we're dealing with. Let's say, I don't know, 900 euros, 1,000 euros.
1,000
Keep
euros.
it simple.
Yeah,
okay?
that's the middle, I think.
I think so. And it'll make the maths easy for me at the end. So childcare, okay? So childcare is if you're paying out childcare to a creche. So let's say we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with somebody else. And he has to pay, which we'll get down at the end, he must pay maintenance. So we'll add that in a second, okay?
Yep.
So let's say, for example, motor vehicle and home insurance. So the motor vehicle would be, let's say, I'd say probably 50 euros a month. I'll just take that. And the house insurance would be that if he wanted to have insurance for contents. So let's say it's 100 euros, okay, for both of those. And as I said, this allowance of this 100 euros was originally included in this one. They decided that this should be a separate class.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It's another 100 euros that they're allowed not, I suppose, distribute to their creditors effectively.
Yeah.
The last thing is special circumstances, okay? So special circumstances comes down to who you are and what isn't covered in these headings. So it's normally private medical insurance, additional medical expenses, or let's say this individual has one child with his ex-wife. He must pay €500 a month in maintenance, and that's court approved. Let's say in Ireland, an Irish court, okay?
Yep.
That's €500. Now, as a very good accountant, I don't use my head anymore. But I do. And I'm creating.
Are you looking now for AI to calculate it?
Do you know what now? I have a very old calculator in my office.
No, you're still using calculator?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I must get onto AI, right?
Yeah, you need. Normally you can take a photo and then it's calculating it automatically.
Really?
Yes, of course.
So you can see here, that is 2,984. That's his expenses. So if his income is €2,500, doesn't matter. There are his allowances. If his income is €2,950, doesn't matter. That's what you must live on. If your net income is €4,000, the official assignee, or me as the PIP, will assess that's a substantial dividend to go to your creditors. But interesting enough, that also doesn't matter how much you owe. It's what you can contribute. Yep. So let's say if we've got a dividend here of €1,000 a month, we're in bankruptcy, it's 36 months, that's a really easy number, that's 36,000. That's all you can contribute. It's likely the official assignee's fees will be €10,000 roughly. So that's 26,000 of dividends to go to your creditors, whether you owe 20,000, 50,000, €1,000,000, €20 million. It doesn't matter. The only difference that might happen is if there was a mortgage in here, well, what is the mortgage repayment? The housing thing will be the only thing that would change.
Yeah.
And that's how an RLE works. And it doesn't change. The only thing that will change is the makeup of the person. Is it a couple with a car? Is it a couple without a car? Is it a couple with 4 children? Where are they in school? Are they in primary school, secondary school? But now under special circumstances, we have a new claim where it's been agreed that if you've got a child and they're a dependent child and they're gone into 3rd level or university, you're entitled to claim allowance for that. Because a child in Ireland is dependent well beyond the age of 18. But when we started this, you only had allowance up to the age of 18, and whatever ever happened to them when they went to 3rd level, nobody cared. So this is very mathematical. So if you were sitting down as a debtor and you wanted to work out, how much do I think? You can calculate it, right? But that's what you live on. These allowances won't change unless the ISI decide some of them should go up, or your rent goes up, or your maintenance goes up, or your insurance goes up. They're the same. So it's easy enough to do a calculation. The only thing that might change is your income. But if your income goes up, it's more dividends. If your income goes down, it's less dividends. There is a calculation in the legislation that if your income, for example, goes up €200, you get to keep the first 100. Then you split it 50-50 with the creditor after that. That's the legislation. You know the legislation is this thick, but you can condense it down.
You can broke it down on really little paper. Yeah. On the end, it's much fairer than other member states of the European Union. When we are going to Germany, then we can see for a single who is paying for the kit, the maintenance, we will be by around maximum €2,000 per month. Yeah.
This. Wow.
In Germany, you will be by around €2,000.
Including everything.
Including everything. For you, it's 1,450. From this, you're paying rent. There, you're paying everything. Yeah. Wow. So you're paying your food, you're paying your insurance, everything, and then comes maybe this €500 on top. So that's what I told. Maximum €2,000. In Ireland, it is much fairer and more realistic. They are nearer by the life. They are nearer by the person. Yeah. Everybody has. So for me, this looks like a good life because it is my real life. It is not a fake. It's not static. Yeah. In Germany, it's quite static. You have this €1,450 and you're blocked. You have no chance. You can't move. That's it. Maybe you can get a little bit up when you have a child. That's okay. It's going up when you have a little bit more income, but for a single, you will stay by 1,450 euro. That's it. Goodbye. So when we're looking in Spain, it's quite interesting. The basic in Spain, it's this 1,080 euro per month, what you have free. From that you're paying normally rent and all this other stuffs. Yeah, and it's also quite interesting what Spain is doing, but you can increase it with maintenance. Maintenance is much higher. Yeah. And also the maintenance for the wife you can put in. This is also really interesting. So you can increase it, of course, but it's also really low. Latvia, it's also really funny. There you have the point that just 30% of your income you need to give standard to the insolvency administrator.
Really?
Yes.
Just a flat 30%?
Just 30%.
So in this case, he's earning 3,000 euros.
Yes.
Roughly. He probably has no dividend.
Yep.
But in Latvia, he pays over 1,000 euros.
Yes.
That's it. Wow.
It's crazy, huh? So it's different in the countries. Ireland sounds quite fair, and for most of the clients, what we have standard in a moment around 2,500, 3, 4, 5,000 we have as well by couple clients. Yeah, it's more realistic for the clients. This is on life.
But I would challenge that and saying, I have clients who for 10 years, at this stage, 10 or 11 years, have been living the reasonable living expenses. And they're hard. And I would say it's a reasonable standard of living, it's 30 or 40% below what the normal standard. But from talking to people, once they get their case approved and they get their RLEs, it's hard to live on them.
It's totally hard. And think about it. When you need to stay 3 years in bankruptcy and you need to live 3 years from it. Yeah. When you're under the real life expenses. Yeah. And then you need to live 3 years from it. That's quite heavy. That's a pain in the ass.
And it's difficult, but these are the allowances. So from our perspective, when we were running the cases, we were confident, just apply the logic, know your client, put in the allowances, claim for, if they've been sick, you should be putting that in there. Because they need to know that when they're putting in their case, this is what they live on.
Yeah.
But I would say 100% of our clients have done it. Because they know what's on the other side. The other side is the light at the end of the tunnel, and they're done and they can move on with their lives. But the problem has been going on for 10 or 15 years. So then there's a 5-year DSA or a 6-year PIA or a 3-year bankruptcy. That's a long time of your life to be dealing with this sort of stuff. But it is what it is. These are the figures. We don't go off them,
This is amazing. Cool. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much that you have explained it once.
I hope I explained it, yeah.
Yeah, you did. You did. Thank you for that. Wenn wir das Interesse bei Ihnen geweckt haben für eine Insolvenz in Irland, freuen wir uns. Wenn wir Sie diesbezüglich beraten dürfen, hinterlassen Sie uns einfach ein Kontaktformular oder rufen Sie bei mir im Office an. Einer meiner Mitarbeiter wird mit Ihnen einen Telefontermin direkt vereinbaren. Es gibt auch SOS-Termine bei uns und wir nehmen uns Ihrer Sache an und informieren Sie gern noch weiter über das irische Verfahren. Mark, thank you for coming over. Today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
And see you in the next video.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's go. Why
Thank you very much. Wenn wir das Interesse für eine irische Insolvenz bei Ihnen geweckt haben, dann freuen wir uns, wenn Sie uns ein Kontaktformular hinterlassen. Sie sehen, wie einfach es in Irland ist, gerade auch mit den Pfändungsfreibeträgen in der Insolvenz zu überleben im Vergleich zu Deutschland. Die RLEs sind angepasst an das tatsächliche Leben und man hat ein vor allen Dingen würdevolles Leben in einer Insolvenz in Irland. Hinterlassen Sie uns ein Kontaktformular, wenn Interesse besteht, rufen Sie uns an, gerne kontaktieren Sie mein Büro. Wir vereinbaren umgehend ein Erstgespräch mit Ihnen, welches selbstverständlich kostenfrei ist und dann werden Sie sicherlich auch im Laufe des Verfahrens Mark live in Irland sehen dürfen. Vielen Dank für Ihre Zeit und auf Wiedersehen.